What's the most common mistake people make when dating an avoidant that destroys any chance of connection? It happens in relationships all the time. Someone starts pulling back, so you adjust. You give them room. You stop pushing. And somehow that space becomes permanent distance. You back off when they pull away. You don't ask questions. You give them all the space they seem to need. And somehow that's exactly what makes them disappear completely. What I'm about to show you about dating avoidance goes against everything you've heard about relationships. If you've been dating an avoidant and nothing seems to work, this breakdown will show you why. The behaviors I'll be explaining look like mature dating moves, but with avoidance, they trigger something completely different. Dating an avoidant requires understanding that the rules change completely. What works when dating someone with secure attachment becomes poison when dating someone avoidant. The biggest trap people fall into is treating avoidant behavior like it needs the same response you'd give anyone else who seems overwhelmed or stressed. When you're dating an avoidant and they start creating distance, your instinct tells you to give them space. Back off. Stop initiating. Let them come to you when they're ready. This feels respectful and mature. It's what every dating advice column tells you to do when someone needs breathing room. But with avoidance, this response doesn't create safety. It creates abandonment. The person you're dating pulls back after a weekend together. Texts slow down. Plans become vague. Your response is to mirror that energy. You stop reaching out as much. You wait for them to initiate. You give them the space they seem to be asking for without actually asking for it. This feels like you're being cool, not clingy, respecting their boundaries. But what's actually happening is you're confirming their deepest fear about dating anyone. That closeness leads to people leaving. That vulnerability results in abandonment. That letting someone in means they'll eventually disappear. Your pullback, which feels like respect to you, reads as rejection to them. Recognizing the difference between giving space and disappearing matters enormously when you're dating an avoidant. Their pullback isn't a request for distance. It's a test. Not a conscious test they're deliberately running, but an automatic pattern their system uses to check if you're safe. When intimacy builds and their defenses activate, they create space to see what happens next. Will you chase them anxiously, confirming that closeness means losing freedom? Or will you disappear, confirming that people leave when things get real? Both responses feed their pattern. But most people, trying to avoid being the anxious chaser, become the disappearing act instead. They think they're doing the right thing by matching the avoidance energy. They're actually doing the worst thing possible. The early stages of dating an avoidant often feel exciting and intense. They're charming, interesting, and engaged. But as dating progresses and emotional intimacy naturally develops, something shifts. The person who texted good morning every day goes quiet. The person who made weekend plans starts having a packed schedule. The person who seemed genuinely interested becomes distant and distracted. Your dating dynamic changes without warning or explanation. Most people respond by pulling back themselves, thinking this is what the avoidant wants. It's not what they want, it's what they expect. And when you deliver exactly what they expect, you become another person who proved their internal narrative right. Over-accommodating emotional unavailability represents the second major mistake when dating an avoidant. You're dating someone who doesn't share much about their feelings, doesn't ask deep questions, keeps conversations surface level. Instead of addressing this directly, you adjust. You stop sharing your own feelings too. You keep things light. You avoid topics that might make them uncomfortable. You essentially shrink yourself to fit their comfort zone. This feels like you're being understanding about their attachment style. What you're actually doing is enabling a dynamic where neither person shows up authentically and the dating relationship never deepens beyond superficial connection. Vulnerability from both people is what makes dating work. When you're dating an avoidant who struggles with emotional openness, the temptation is to make up for their lack of sharing by also not sharing. You think you're meeting them where they are. You're actually building a relationship on a foundation of mutual guardedness that can't sustain any real intimacy. The dating phase is when people learn about each other, reveal themselves progressively, build trust through gradual vulnerability. If you're dating an avoidant and you accommodate their emotional unavailability by becoming emotionally unavailable yourself, you're not creating safety. You're creating a hollow connection that feels empty to both of you, even if neither person says it out loud. Never expressing your own needs or preferences becomes a pattern that kills relationships when dating avoidance. The avoidant cancels plans last minute. You say it's fine. They forget something important you mentioned. You brush it off. They're inconsistent with communication. You tell yourself it doesn't bother you. You're trying to be the low-maintenance, easygoing person you think they need. But what you're actually communicating is that your needs don't matter, that the dating relationship is entirely on their terms, and that they can show up however they want without consequence. This doesn't make them feel comfortable. It makes them lose respect for you. Establishing mutual standards for how you treat each other is essential when dating someone, including avoidance. When you're dating an avoidant and you never push back on behavior that doesn't work for you, you're not being accommodating, you're being a doormat. Avoidants, despite their fear of intimacy, don't actually respect partners who have no boundaries. They might initially seem relieved that you're not demanding or needy, but over time they lose attraction to someone who tolerates anything. The dating phase is when people figure out if they're compatible, if their needs can coexist, if there's mutual respect and consideration. If you spend your time dating an avoidant pretending you have no needs, you build a dynamic where they learn to treat you like you have no needs, and then they lose interest because there's no challenge, no substance, no real person to connect with. Interpreting every pullback as a sign to end things creates another common trap when dating avoidance. You're dating someone who goes through cycles of closeness and distance. When they pull back, you panic and assume it's over. You start mentally preparing for the breakup. You distance yourself emotionally to protect yourself from the hurt you're sure is coming. This protective distancing registers to the avoidant as you leaving, which triggers their abandonment wound, which makes them pull back further, which makes you more certain it's ending. The cycle feeds itself until the dating relationship actually does end, not because it had to, but because both people kept confirming each other's fears. Understanding that periodic withdrawal doesn't automatically signal the end matters when dating an avoidant. It means their system is managing discomfort with closeness. If you respond to every pullback like it's a breakup, you create constant instability in the dating dynamic. The avoidant never gets the chance to work through their discomfort and return to connection because you've already emotionally exited. You're so focused on protecting yourself from potential hurt that you guarantee the hurt by creating the exact outcome you feared. When dating an avoidant, stability doesn't mean they never pull back. It means you don't abandon the relationship emotionally every time they need to regulate their nervous system. Trying to logic them out of their patterns represents another mistake people make when dating avoidance. You're dating someone who pulls away when things get close. You sit them down and explain attachment theory. You send them articles about avoidant attachment. You try to make them understand what they're doing and why it's a problem. This approach treats their attachment style like it's an intellectual problem that can be solved with information. It's not. It's an automatic response pattern that happens below conscious awareness. When you're dating an avoidant and you try to educate them about their patterns, while those patterns are actively happening, you're not helping. You're making them feel analyzed, judged, and broken. This pushes them away faster than almost anything else. Awareness has to come from them when you're dating someone with avoidant patterns, not from your explanations. If you're constantly pointing out their attachment style, analyzing their behavior, telling them what they're doing wrong, you position yourself as their therapist rather than their dating partner. The dating relationship becomes about fixing them instead of connecting with them. Avoidants already carry shame about their difficulty with intimacy. When you're dating an avoidant and you keep highlighting their patterns, you trigger that shame, which makes them want to get away from you because you represent everything they feel inadequate about. Your attempts to help become the thing that drives them away. Making everything about their attachment style destroys most relationships when dating avoidance. Every time they're busy, it's because they're avoidant. Every time they seem distant, it's their attachment pattern. Every time they don't respond immediately, it's them pulling away. You stop seeing them as a complete person with various moods, stressors, and needs. You reduce them to their attachment style. When you're dating an avoidant and you interpret every single behavior through the lens of their attachment patterns, you create a relationship where they can never just be human. They can never have a bad day, be actually busy, or need alone time without it becoming evidence of their avoidance. This level of hypervigilance exhausts both people and makes the dating relationship feel like constant surveillance rather than connection. Successfully dating an avoidant requires holding two truths at once. Their patterns are real and affect the relationship, and they're also a whole person beyond those patterns who deserves to be seen as more than their attachment style. When you're dating an avoidant and you can't maintain this balance, you create a dynamic where they feel constantly reduced to a diagnosis. They stop wanting to be around you because being around you means being reminded of their inadequacy. The dating relationship becomes a mirror that only reflects their wounds, never their wholeness. No one wants to date someone who makes them feel fundamentally broken. Staying in dating relationships with avoidants who show no awareness or willingness to work on their patterns represents another critical mistake. You're dating someone who consistently pulls away, never addresses it, shows no interest in understanding their behavior, and makes no effort to change. You stay because you understand attachment theory. You stay because you know it's not personal. You stay because you think your understanding alone will fix things. It won't. When you're dating an avoidant who has zero awareness of their patterns and zero interest in doing anything about them, you're not in a relationship with growth potential. You're in a relationship where you'll continuously hurt yourself against their defenses while they remain unchanged. Both people need to be working toward connection when dating someone, even if that work looks different for each person. When you're dating an avoidant who refuses to acknowledge their patterns, who dismisses your concerns, who makes no effort to stay present when discomfort arises, you're not dating someone who's capable of partnership right now. Understanding their attachment style doesn't obligate you to tolerate behavior that hurts you. When you're dating an avoidant, their patterns explain the behavior. They don't excuse it. If you're dating someone who uses their avoidance as a free pass to treat you inconsistently without ever addressing it, you're teaching them that their attachment style is permission to hurt people without accountability. Losing yourself completely in the process represents the final major mistake people make when dating avoidance. You're so focused on understanding their needs, accommodating their patterns, and not triggering their defenses that you forget you're also a person in this dating relationship with needs and limits. You stop doing things you enjoy because you're always available in case they decide to reach out. You stop seeing friends because you don't want to miss potential time with them. You stop having opinions because you don't want to create conflict. You become a shell of yourself, organized entirely around managing their comfort. When you're dating an avoidant and you disappear as a person, you guarantee they'll lose interest because there's nothing substantial left to be interested in. Maintaining your own identity, interests, and life outside the relationship matters when dating anyone, including avoidance. When you're dating an avoidant and you collapse your entire existence into managing their attachment patterns, you're not being a good partner. You're being codependent. Avoidants are attracted to people with their own lives, their own interests, their own sense of self. When you're dating an avoidant and you become completely absorbed in the relationship, you actually trigger their defenses more because you start to feel consuming and suffocating. The very thing you think will make them feel safe, your total availability and accommodation, becomes the thing that makes them want to run. Most mistakes people make when dating avoidance stem from applying normal dating strategies to someone whose attachment system operates differently. You do what would work with secure people and watch it backfire. You give space when they pull back and they interpret it as abandonment. You accommodate their emotional unavailability and the relationship becomes hollow. You suppress your needs and they lose respect. You treat every withdrawal like a breakup, and you create the instability that guarantees one. You try to educate them about their patterns, and they feel judged. You make everything about their attachment style, and they feel reduced to a diagnosis. You stay despite zero awareness or effort on their part, and you guarantee ongoing hurt. You lose yourself trying to be perfect for them, and they lose interest in someone with no substance. The pattern repeats across dating relationships with avoidance because people don't understand how fundamentally different the dynamic needs to be. They approach dating an avoidant the same way they'd approach dating anyone else. They adjust their behavior based on what seems logical and respectful, but logic doesn't account for how avoidant attachment operates. What seems respectful to a secure person reads as rejection to an avoidant. What seems like healthy boundaries to most people feels like indifference to someone whose system constantly scans for abandonment. Dating an avoidant successfully means learning an entirely different language of connection, one where your stability matters more than your accommodation, where your consistency matters more than your understanding, where your authentic presence matters more than your perfect behavior. Confusion about what avoidants actually need versus what they say they need creates additional problems when dating them. They say they need space, so you give them unlimited space. They say they value independence, so you never ask for anything. They say they don't like drama, so you suppress every genuine emotion. You're taking their words at face value without understanding what's driving those words. When you're dating an avoidant, what they claim to need often reflects their defense system talking, not their actual relational needs. Everyone needs connection. Everyone needs to feel valued. Everyone needs consistency. Avoidants aren't exempt from basic human needs just because their defense system tells them they are. Taking someone's defensive statements as relationship truth becomes a trap when dating avoidants. They might say they don't need much contact, but when you rarely reach out, they feel forgotten. They might say they prefer keeping things casual, but when you never go deeper, they feel unseen. They might say emotional conversations make them uncomfortable, but when you never share anything real, they feel disconnected. The words coming out of their mouth and the needs their system actually has don't always align. When you're dating an avoidant, responding only to their explicit statements while ignoring the human underneath those defenses means you're dating their protective mechanism, not the actual person. Fear of being too much drives people to become too little when dating avoidants. You've heard they need space, so you make yourself scarce. You've heard they value independence, so you become completely self-sufficient. You've heard they don't like emotional intensity, so you flatten all your feelings. In trying not to overwhelm them, you disappear as a presence in the dating relationship. When you're dating an avoidant and you shrink yourself down to almost nothing, you don't create comfort. You create a relationship where there's not enough substance for either person to hold on to. Avoidants don't actually want partners who have no needs, no presence, no emotional reality. They want partners who can be real without being overwhelming. There's a difference between not being too much and being barely anything at all. What not to do when dating an avoidant is as important as what to do. The mistakes don't happen because people don't care. They happen because people care deeply and desperately want to make things work. They read about attachment styles. They try to be patient and understanding. They adjust their behavior in ways that seem helpful. But without grasping how those adjustments land for someone avoidant, they create the opposite effect they're hoping for. They push away the person they're trying to hold on to. They destroy the connection they're trying to build. They confirm the exact fears they're trying to disprove. Holding steady when they pull back without disappearing yourself requires constant conscious effort when dating an avoidant. Staying authentic even when they're guarded means resisting the urge to match their emotional unavailability. Maintaining boundaries even when they're inconsistent means remembering that your needs matter too. Seeing their patterns without reducing them to those patterns means holding complexity. Recognizing when lack of awareness makes the dating relationship impossible means knowing when to walk away. Keeping your own life alive even while dating someone who struggles with closeness means refusing to make them your entire world. These adjustments feel counterintuitive to everything you know about dating. But when you're dating an avoidant, the usual dating rules don't apply. Understanding what not to do gives you the foundation to figure out what actually works. Chemistry and compatibility get confused when dating avoidants, leading people to stay in relationships that hurt them. The push-pull dynamic creates intensity that feels like passion. The uncertainty creates anxiety that feels like excitement. The moments of closeness after periods of distance feel more meaningful because they're rare. When you're dating an avoidant, your nervous system can mistake the roller coaster for deep connection. But intensity isn't intimacy. Anxiety isn't attraction. And rare moments of closeness don't equal a healthy dating relationship. If the best moments in your dating relationship are when they come back after pulling away, you're not experiencing genuine connection. You're experiencing relief from anxiety, which your brain registers as positive feeling, but isn't actually relationship satisfaction. Waiting for them to change keeps people trapped in unfulfilling dating relationships with avoidance. You tell yourself if you're just patient enough, understanding enough, perfect enough, they'll eventually feel safe and stop pulling away. You date them not for who they are right now, but for who you hope they'll become. When you're dating an avoidant, hoping for future change while tolerating present pain means you're not actually in a relationship with the person in front of you. You're in a relationship with your fantasy of who they could be. That fantasy keeps you stuck accepting behavior you wouldn't tolerate otherwise. It keeps you giving more than you're getting. It keeps you explaining away hurt instead of addressing it. Dating someone for their potential rather than their reality guarantees disappointment. If you're dating an avoidant, avoid these mistakes. Don't mirror their distance and disappear. Don't over-accommodate their emotional unavailability. Don't suppress all your needs. Don't treat every pullback like a breakup. Don't try to educate them about their patterns. Don't make everything about their attachment style. Don't stay if they show no awareness or effort, and don't lose yourself in the process. These mistakes guarantee the dating relationship fails. Leave a comment sharing which mistake you recognized in your own dating situation. If this helped you understand what's going wrong when dating an avoidant, hit the like button and subscribe for more content on dating and attachment. Thanks for watching.